The day my mother disappeared from our home. They say the heart always remembers the moment it breaks, the sound, the smell, the silence that follows. For me, it was a late autumn afternoon in Maple Creek, a small town in Pennsylvania, when the air smelled like fading leaves and betrayal. That's the day my mother disappeared from our home, not in body, but in spirit. I was 11. My name is Elara Moore, and back then, all I knew of life was that my mother's laughter filled every corner of our small two-story house. She baked cinnamon rolls every Sunday morning, hummed old country songs, and believed that love could fix anything. I believed her. Until my aunt, Vivian, arrived. She came wearing perfume too heavy for our kitchen air, a kind that spoke of cities and secrets. She was my mother's older sister, elegant, confident, and the kind of woman who made people believe she knew better. I remember her smile that day. It didn't reach her eyes. "Your mother needs rest," she said sweetly, touching my hair like I was a child she pitied. "I'll be staying for a while. To help." But from the moment she stepped inside, our home began to change. My father, who used to look at my mother like she was his entire world, started laughing too much at Vivian's jokes. He lingered near her, his voice softer when he spoke her name. My mother pretended not to notice, but her hands trembled when she poured his coffee. At first, I thought it was just family tension. Every family has it, right? But soon, small things began to disappear. My mother's favorite earrings, the old photo album from their childhood, the framed picture of my parents' wedding. When I asked about it, Vivian would smile and say, "Oh, Elara, your mother probably misplaced them. She forgets things lately." And slowly, my father began to believe that too. My mother started shrinking, not in size, but in presence. Her laughter stopped. Her eyes always looked far away, like she was trying to remember something she lost long ago. I would find her sitting by the window at night, whispering prayers into the darkness. Then one night, everything shattered. He woke up to voices downstairs, harsh, breaking, tearing through the quay. My father's voice was sharp, angry. My mother's was soft, pleading. And Vivian's, smooth, calm, manipulating. "She's unstable," Vivian said. "She's been forgetting things, accusing people of lies. You can't let her drag you down with her." The next morning, my mother was gone. They said she needed help, that she'd gone to a wellness retreat to find herself. My father told me not to worry. Vivian told me my mother would come back better. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. My mother never left without saying goodbye. Vivian moved into her room 2 weeks later. She redecorated everything, new curtains, new colors, new rules. She even cooked my father's favorite meals as if they'd always been hers. And the worst part? He let her. At night, I'd hear their laughter behind closed doors, echoing down the hallway like ghosts of betrayal. I stopped sleeping. I stopped speaking. I started listening. Because something inside me knew, my mother hadn't gone anywhere. She had been erased. Years passed before I found the first clue. A letter, hidden inside one of her old recipe books, with my mother's handwriting shaking across the page. "If you're reading this, Elara, it means she's won. But truth never stays buried forever. One day, you'll know everything." I was 17 then. And from that moment on, I made a promise. I would uncover every lie Vivian ever told, and make her regret every single one. The day I found that letter was the day my childhood ended. And the beginning of my revenge began. The return to Maple Creek. 6 years later, I returned to Maple Creek. The town hadn't changed much. Same sleepy streets, same small-town gossip, same faces pretending not to remember what they'd done. But I wasn't the same girl who'd left. The quiet, frightened child who once hid behind her mother's absence was gone. In her place stood a woman with a mission, one built from silence, loss, and fire. I'd spent years away, college in Boston, therapy sessions I barely spoke through, part-time jobs that numbed the ache. But even through distance, the echoes of that night never stopped. Every letter I found, every rumor I heard, every quiet whisper about poor June Moore, my mother, only strengthened my resolve. I came back not for closure, but for justice. When I reached our old house, it looked polished, artificially perfect. The white picket fence was repainted, the flower beds bursting with color. Vivian's touch. She always needed everything to look right, even when everything underneath was rotten. And there she was, standing on the porch, trimming roses with a smile that could cut glass. My father was nowhere in sight. "Elara," she said, surprised but pretending to be pleased. "You've grown up beautifully." Her voice still carried that same sweetness, like honey laced with poison. "Guess I take after my mother," I said quietly. For a split second, her hands froze around the shears. Then she smiled again, smoother this time. "You're welcome to stay. This will always be home." Home. The word burned in my chest like acid. Inside, the house smelled different, expensive candles, fresh paint, and not a single trace of my mother. Vivian had erased every photograph, every keepsake, every memory that once proved my mother lived there. It was like she had rewritten our family history, replacing my mother's laughter with her perfume. I unpacked in my old room, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The wallpaper was gone, replaced by muted gray. My childhood drawings? Gone. Even the crack in the wall that used to look like a heart, patched. Vivian's control was meticulous, suffocating, almost obsessive. That night, while pretending to sleep, I heard a door open downstairs. Footsteps. Soft. Hésitant. Then a faint sound, a whisper, Meb. I followed it, my heart pounding in my throat. Vivian stood in the living room alone, staring at a photograph she thought she'd hidden, one of her and my father at a lake smiling. But behind them, barely visible, was my mother, standing at the edge of the frame, eyes distant, expression hollow. Vivian traced her fingers across the glass, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then she turned, eyes glistening with something that wasn't guilt, it was fear. When she saw me, her face hardened. "You shouldn't sneak around, Elara. This house has old memories. Best to let them rest." But I wasn't resting. I was remembering.
The next morning, I drove to the Maple Creek Library, the only place untouched by Vivian Esrich.
I started digging. Old newspapers.
Hospital record.
Town registries. And that's when I found it, a hospital intake form dated the week my mother left. It wasn't signed by her. It was signed by Vivian. Under relation to patient, it read, Sister, Legal Guardian. My mother had been declared mentally unfit and sent to a private facility an hour away, all under Vivian's signature. The reason?
Delusional paranoia. Maillan shook, I stared at the paper.
My throat tightened.
My mother hadn't abandonné me.
She'd been locked away. That night, I drove to the address listed on the form. A grey building at the edge of the woods.
I sat there in the dark, the rain tapping against the windshield, staring at the gate that separated me from the truth.
I whispered her name, Mom. And for the first time in years, I swore out loud. I'm bringing you home. No matter what it costs. The woman behind the glass. The next morning I returned to that facility, no hesitation, no fear, just a pulse pounding with determination. The building looked cold and clinical, hidden deep behind a wall of trees like it was ashamed of its own existence. A brass sign read, Willow Pines Rehabilitation Center. But everything about it screamed secrecy, not healing. The woman at the reception wore a tight smile. Can I help you? Yes, I said, steady but trembling inside. I'm here to see June Moore. She typed something into her computer, the click of the keys filling the silence. Then she frowned slightly. Are you family? I'm her daughter. Her eyebrows lifted, just slightly, enough to tell me this wasn't a common visit. She asked me to wait, then disappeared through a door at the end of the hallway. Minutes dragged like hours. I stared at the linoleum floor, counting every second that separated me from the truth. And then, a soft voice called from behind me. Ms. Moore? You can come in. The nurse led me down a long corridor lined with white walls, each door numbered like cells. When she stopped at room 213, my hands went cold. She knocked gently, then opened the door. The smell of antiseptic hit first. Then the silence. She was sitting by the window, thinner, frielier, her hair streaked with silver. But it was her. My mother. Mom, I whispered. She turned slowly, her eyes wide, uncertain. For a heartbeat, I saw confusion, and then recognition cracked through like sunlight breaking fog. Her lips trembled. Elara. I broke. Every wall I had built to survive, every ounce of anger, every cold layer of revenge, all of it melted into that one word. I ran to her, fell into her arms, and she clung to me like a woman clinging to air after years underwater. She wept into my shoulder. I thought I'd never see you again. I pulled back just enough to see her face. She was pale, fragile, but her eyes burned with something fierce. Mom, what happened? Why did Vivian send you here? Her expression changed, fear flickered through it, then shame. She told them I was losing my mind, that I was dangerous to myself. She said it was for my safety. And your father believed her. She lied, I said, voice shaking with rage. She always lied, my mother whispered. Even when we were children, she wanted everything I had. When she couldn't have it, she found ways to destroy it. Her voice dropped lower. I tried to tell your father what she was doing, that she was manipulating him. But she showed him fake letters, things I never wrote. She told him I'd been cheating. And he believed her. I froze. Fake letters. Vivian's lies had been so carefully crafted that they'd rewritten our lives. My mother took my hand. I stopped fighting after that. I thought maybe if I disappeared, you'd be safe. Tears blurred my vision. You were wrong. She didn't protect me, she raised me on lies. She made me believe you left because you wanted to. My mother closed her eyes, tears tracing lines down her face. I wanted to come home, Elara. But every time I asked, she sent letters here under your name. She told me you didn't want to see me anymore. That broke something inside me completely. She thought I abandoned her. Vivian's lies had caged both of us, one in guilt, the other in silence. I promised her I'd fix everything. I'd get her out. As I left Willow Pines, the nurse caught my arm and whispered quietly, she shouldn't even be here. She's lucid, gentle. But every time her evaluation comes up, someone renews her stay.
Sommeon pays privately.
I didn't have to ask who. That night, I drove home through rain that felt like the sky was grieving with me. The lights from the house glowed through the mist, soft, golden, deceptive. Vivian was sitting by the fireplace, sipping wine like she owned the world. When she saw me, she smiled. You're out late, dear. Long drive. I looked at her, at the woman who had destroyed my family, and for the first time, I smiled back. Yeah, I said softly. Just visiting someone you forgot to bury deep enough. Her smile faltered. For a moment, fear flickered behind her perfect composure. And that was when I knew, she could lie all she wanted, but she could never hide from what was coming. The storm had started. And this time, it was mine. The web she wove begins to break. By morning, the storm outside had faded, but inside, it was only beginning. Vivian moved through the house like nothing was wrong, humming softly as she arranged flowers, her reflection calm in the glass. She'd spent years perfecting that image, the graceful wife, the charitable woman, the one everyone in Maple Creek adored. But beneath it all was rot, and I was done pretending not to smell it. I started small, subtle, silent, just like she had once done to us. First, I went through her things, the drawer in her study where she kept her important documents. There, tucked between tax forms and charity invitations, I found a folder labeled June Moore, Medical Authorization. Every signature was forged. I could see it immediately. I'd memorized my mother's handwriting from every old letter she wrote me as a child, soft, flowing, delicate. These signatures were sharp, mechanical, emotionless. She hadn't just lied. She'd committed fraud to erase my mother's life. That night, I scanned every page, every date, every signature. I sent copies to a lawyer I trusted in Boston, a friend who owed me a favor. And while the legal wheels began to turn quietly, I focused on something more personal, dismantling the story Vivian had built. At dinner, I asked about my father. He's on a business trip, she said lightly, cutting into her salmon. He'll be back in a few weeks. But her eyes flickered, just for a second. My father had been gone for nearly 2 months. No calls. No messages. And for a man who used to text me every Sunday, that silence wasn't just distance, it was control. Funny, I said, my tone casual. I called his office today. They said he hasn't worked there in over a year. The knife paused in her hand. I leaned back, smiling faintly. Did you know that? Her eyes met mine, sharp and calculating.
You've been digging, haven't you?
I didn't answer. She laughed softly, but it wasn't real laughter.
You're just like her. Always suspicious. Always imagining monsters in the mirror.
I don't imagine monsters, I said quietly. I expose them. That night, I watched her from the hallway. She was on the phone, whispering urgently, words like lawyer, papers, control. She was unraveling. The next day, I visited the town clerk's office. The woman behind the counter remembered me from years ago. She'd known my mother. Your aunt, she said carefully. She handled all the paperwork after your mother's incident. She said you were too young to understand. I asked to see those documents. Most were restricted, but one wasn't, a property transfer deed. My father had signed over joint ownership of the house to Vivian, 1 week before my mother was institutionalized. I felt sick.
Vivian a denté juste stolen my mother's place.
She had planned every move, every step, every signature to build herself a throne made of deceit. By evening, my lawyer called. Elara, everything you sent, it's bad. If those signatures are proven forged, your aunt's in serious trouble. We can start with a quiet inquiry, but you need proof your mother is mentally competent. That's the key. I already have it, I said. I've seen her. She's fine. Then record it, he said. Show the truth. And that became my next mission. I visited Willow Pines again 2 days later, bringing a hidden recorder. My mother spoke clearly, coherently, recalling dates, names, and what Vivian had done. She even remembered the day she was taken, the men who arrived, the paper she was forced to sign, Vivian standing behind them, smiling. I listened to her voice echo through the recorder that night, each word proof of a truth that had been buried for years. But when I came home, the house was silent, too silent. My door was open. My drawers, searched. My laptop gone. On the kitchen counter, a note in perfect cursive. Stop digging, Elara. You don't know what you're playing with. For a moment, fear flickered inside me. But only for a moment. Because in that single cold sentence, I realized something. She was scared. For the first time in her life, she was scared of me. And that meant I was finally winning. I looked up at the framed photo she kept on the wall, her and my father smiling, pretending the world was perfect. I whispered, you stole everything from her. Now, I'll take it all back. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky again, low, distant, but coming closer. And in that sound, I heard it clearly, the beginning of her fall. The fall of Vivian Moore. The morning it all came crashing down, the air felt heavy, like the world knew what was about to happen. I had been awake all night, sitting in my mother's old room, listening to the quiet creaks of the house Vivian once ruled like a queen. The same walls that once echoed with her laughter now felt like witnesses, waiting for justice. By then, everything was ready. The lawyer had the recordings. The hospital had been notified of the forged documents. And my mother's new medical evaluation, done discreetly by an outside specialist, proved she was completely sane. The truth was now unstoppable. But I wanted Vivian to feel it before the world saw it, the same way she made my mother feel powerless all those years ago. That morning, I set the stage. The breakfast table looked perfect, her favorite china, coffee steaming, fresh flowers from the garden. When she came downstairs, she looked surprised, suspicious. What's all this? She asked, her tone soft but tight. Celebration, I said, pouring her coffee.
A family réunion.
She froze. What do you mean? I smiled faintly. You'll see. Moments later, the front door opened, and my father walked in. He looked older, tired, but when he saw me, his face softened.
Elara?
Then his gaze shifted, to Vivian. You said she wasn't here.
Vivian's smile wavered.
I didn't want to upset you. I could see her mask beginning to fracture. I asked Dad to come, I said quietly. I thought he should hear something. I placed a small recorder on the table and pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, trembling, emotional but clear.
Vivian, please stop this.
I never cheated on him.
You forged those letters.
You wanted my life, and you took it. My father went still. His hands clenched around the edge of the table. Vivian stood frozen, color draining from her face.
She's confused. You can't believe.
She's not confused. I interrupted sharply. She's been evaluated. She's healthy, sane, and everything she said is true. The signatures on her documents were forged. By you.
My Therese, voice craquait through the silence. Vivian, tel me dit seasoned true.
She stammered, searching for a lie that could save her, but for the first time, none came. Her perfect voice trembled, breaking apart under the weight of years she'd built her empire on. I pulled out one final envelope and dropped it on the table, the official legal notice. You'll be hearing from the police soon. Forgery. Fraud. Medical manipulation. You locked my mother away to take her place. And now, you'll lose everything for it. She stepped back, shaking. You don't understand, Elara. I loved him. He should have been mine from the start. Your mother, she always got what I deserved. Her confession echoed through the house like a curse finally spoken. My father's face twisted in shock and disgust. You ruined our family. You ruined June. When he turned away, Vivian's control shattered completely. She reached out, desperate, but he walked past her without a word. The sound of his car driving away was the sound of her empire collapsing. By noon, the police arrived. They went through her office, her papers, her safe, all filled with the proof she thought she'd hidden too well. She didn't even resist when they took her. She just looked at me, eyes empty, hollow, defeated. You look just like her, she whispered as they led her away. You'll never escape her shadow. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't about shadows anymore, it was about light finally breaking through. 2 days later, I brought my mother home. When she stepped into the house, she paused by the doorway, tears welling up. It feels different, she said softly. It's free now, I whispered. Just like you. We spent that evening sitting by the window, the same one where she used to pray in silence. But this time, she smiled. The world outside looked softer. The ghosts had finally gone quiet. As the sun sank below the hills, painting the house in gold, she turned to me and said, You saved me.
I shook my head.
No, Mom. I just gave the truth its voice back.
That night, I walked out into the garden where Vivian once planted her perfect rose.
I knelt, pulled one from the soil, and dropped it into the trash. Because beauty built on lies doesn't deserve to bloom. And as I looked at the horizon, pink and golden over Maple Creek, I finally felt it, peace. For the first time since I was 11, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt alive again. My mother was free. The lies were over. And my aunt, the woman who stole her place, would spend her life behind walls she built with her own deceit. Justice wasn't loud. It was quiet, but it was complete.